So yesterday I rode into Penn Station on the Long Island Railroad, and I had to deal with an overcrowded train because the time I left, most of the trains at Mineola you got to change at Jamaica. So I had to change at Jamaica to go to Penn Station, and I had to get on this jam-packed train at 8:06 that wound up coming from West Hempstead, and I had to stand all the way to Penn Station, of course. Meanwhile, as we're going along, guess what I see cruising alongside us as we get closer to the East River tunnels? A Babylon train. It's one of the flyers that I was looking up the where it came from, and it's a flyer that only stops at Merrick, Freeport, and Baldwin. That's it, just 3 stops, and their train had plenty of room. No one was standing. It looked almost practically empty. And why can't that train stop at Jamaica? Why couldn't that train stop and pick us up and so I could get a seat? No, they got to have their own private train, and it just infuriates me. I just don't understand how the railroad gets away with this kind of stuff. You can see there's no one standing; it's empty, and I just don't understand. This is exactly why the practice of flyers needs to stop. All trains need to stop at Jamaica, so all customers can be accommodated. This is public transportation, not a private railroad that needs, you know what I'm saying? So let me go over the schedules and show you exactly what the problem is. Alright, so I want to show you the schedule here on the trains for weekdays here. The train that I took that I got on in Mineola was 7:47, but that train goes to Atlantic, and so I had to get off at Jamaica and change at Penn for the 8:06 train, which gets in at 8:29, and I was trying to figure out, all right, where did this jam-packed 8:06 train come from? Well, it actually came off the West Hempstead branch. It's right over here, right over here. So 8:06 train, it gets in 8:29, and it stops at Forest Hills and Woodside. And 8:29, the train is just jam-packed, you know. And this is the problem with the flyers, because that empty train that was, now those Babylon trains, always these flyers here, the flyer that we saw was the one that, I think it was this one right here, the one that stops at Merrick, Freeport, and Baldwin. It only makes 3 stops. That's it. Only the Babylon branch gets these 3-stop only private trains, and it gets in at 8:31, and we saw it actually got in before us. And I see it on the south side tracks, which, hold on a second. I'll point this out to you in a second here. Alright, so these Babylon trains, these flyers come in. Here's the flyover from the Babylon merge, and then what they do is they use this side, the left side, and they usually come through Jamaica on the left side. So they kind of like sneak through Jamaica on the left side. Usually tracks 3 or 4, whatever, usually down here. And they kind of sneak through, try to get out of sight of everybody, and then they use this left side here all the way. They'll usually use, so this one that we saw, the one that I saw was actually using this track right here. This track right here, the track on this left side. And what happens is they take this track all the way down. All right. I take it all the way. I'll just zoom out a little more, make this go a little faster here. But they take it all the way down, and then they enter. Penn Station. Instead of being on this side, they're on this side. They're on the other side over here, and they come through on the left side. And instead of going into the tunnel, so let's see over here. Yeah, instead of going into this tunnel here, what they usually wind up doing is they usually wind up going into this tunnel, or they wind up going into, I think, this tunnel over here. So they always go through on the left side, and that's something I've noticed that the Babylon flyers seem to do. Just they like to have their own little private little railroad running there, where they can. And the train was empty, and it was really annoying. It's really annoying when we were jam-packed up like sardines. And then later, I get to be jammed up again. There's no room to move. It's the 842 train, Huntington. Meanwhile, if you look over there, there's a nice empty Babylon train. Plenty of room over there. I think it's that one or this one, but we're jammed in like sardines, of course. So this is the dichotomy. I think that's a Babylon train over there. Overcrowded train. We'll have to sit on the floor. It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, it was a jam-packed, standing room only train, and this 842 has always been a problem. It's always crowded. What happened was we got to Jamaica, and there was a Babylon train across the platform. And, of course, there were plenty of seats, no one standing. And I took a video and some pictures with the camera, but for some with the phone, but it never came out. It never, the phone, I don't know if something happened, it got lost, so I don't have that for you. But, you know, it's ridiculous. This is what we go through on the main line. And the reason why this train is overcrowded is because it's a Port Jefferson connection, and there needs to be, what they need to do is change the schedule. And they need to have, see, the problem is, and I've explained this to you before, see, the Babylon branch, the Montauk branch trains that start at Patchogue, have their own special connecting express trains in the off-peak hours. But the Port Jefferson branch doesn't have that. And that's the problem. And what they need to do is they need to have, they should extend the 822 to Huntington as a local train instead of just having to go to Hicksville, and then have the 842 be an express train that would stop at only Jamaica, Mineola, Hicksville, and Huntington. And that's what they need to do. They need to do something about this because it's an overcrowded situation. And the 822, the 822 goes to Hicksville, and that should be extended to Huntington. They need more trains going to Huntington. There's not enough service. Meanwhile, the Babylon branch gets to enjoy empty trains all the time. You know, so they have a few crowded trains, but not like the main line. And they're just spoiled constantly. And it's like you have two different railroads. You have the old Elysium train with the lucky, privileged white finance professionals get to have room on their train, while we get to be jammed in like sardines. It violates the very principle of public transportation. Everybody should be treated equally and fairly, and that's not what's happening at this railroad. So I had to show you the experience I had yesterday because it's just very typical for what we deal with here on the main line. Always overcrowded trains. We need more service, and we could get more service. We don't need to wait for the third track to be done. They could be doing more. They could be putting more service, particularly in the off-peak hours. And as far as we saw in the first part of the video, that's an easy solution by just having the Flyers stop at Jamaica. Then you won't have. Then if the Flyers stopped at Jamaica, there wouldn't have to be overcrowded trains. You know, it's so stupid. Just because some people who don't want to, it's public transportation. You can't have your own private little train to yourselves. And that's what they have on the Babylon branch. And it's got to come to an end. It's got to come to an end. Phil Eng needs to do something about this. Maybe I should go to the next Long Island Railroad Committee and bring this up, that the Flyers need to be gotten rid of. All right? Anyway, that's going to conclude this little video about the Long Island Railroad. Thank you for watching.